Yeah, and, the one thing that's nice for Game 3, Yankees at Guardians tomorrow night, is the fact that for the weather that we've had the first 3 days of this week, thankfully Thursday and Friday for Games 3 and 4 are looking pretty good as far as Cleveland goes for some October baseball. So I think we're going to be very fortunate for that good weather. And when I say good weather, by the time it's seventh inning, it's still going to be pretty damn chilly, but like tonight, it got dark around a little after 6:30. So at least we'll have a little bit of sunshine to try to keep it a little bit warmer at Progressive Field. And I hope with that warmth, we'll include the Guardians bats. We definitely need some offense starting tomorrow night for Game 3 because our series in Games 1 and 2 weren't so good, Taven. Not a lot of offense there in the Bronx.
Yeah, 100%. The only reason you were even pretty much scored in those games, and kind of goes back to the Detroit series, is because of Stephen Kwan and Brian Rocchio. I mean, those guys, they're the MVPs of this series. I mean, Leighton Thomas there too, but he's not getting on as often as those guys. So you just really gotta bank on them to just continue what they're doing in Game 3. But I mean, you got to have guys like Josh Naylor and Jose break out of their slumps and get something from the middle to back end of that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There was definitely a lot of frozen bats there in the first game. I pulled up the box score here. We lost 6-3 in the first game, but Stephen Kwan, who was absolutely on fire in that Detroit series, still had a base hit, got an RBI, but it's still. Here's the thing I want to talk about, Taven. From Games 1 and 2, compared to the Detroit series and how it ended, the high note that we had, Lane Thomas grand slam, being at home, this locker room celebration, the third one of the season, between clinching the playoffs, clinching the AL Central, and then winning the division series against the Tigers. Do you feel that anything in Games 1 and 2 resembled the guard ball that we've got to know here in September and now into October?
A little bit. I mean, there were signs of life toward the end of those games where you were getting beat. I mean, at one point you were down, I think 5-0, and came back, put a couple runs on the board, which is good. But you just got to keep the hitting going. I mean, the bullpen's been on lock, so that's obviously resembled guards ball too. They've just been phenomenal, and that's the reason why you won the Detroit series and you've been in these series. Obviously, Bybee only went 1 2/3 innings pitched, so they had to step up in a big role, which they did. But obviously, it's going to be tough playing a team that spends seems like $5 billion when you play when you only kind of spend $5. So it's obviously you're going to have to play tougher than them because on paper their lineup's just obviously more talented. So it all really comes down to you just got to stick to who you are, and guards ball is just playing as hard as you possibly can. So.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm just looking here at the box score, looking at Josh Naylor 0 for 4. Right now, if your last name's Naylor and you're at the plate with a bat, unfortunately, it's just not looking well for our Canadian brothers hitting the baseball right now. So what do you see with their struggles that maybe they can turn around here at Progressive Field? Because you know how Bo gets Josh going if Bo's got hits, but Josh gets going, he gets everybody going. What do you see? Is there anything you see in their at bats that maybe is Josh swinging too hard, or what do you see?
So, I mean, main things with Josh, just every time he goes up there, he's just swinging at anything he possibly can. His chase rate's through the roof, it seems like, against the Yankees. And he's trying to kill it. I feel like he's really just trying to make a statement, especially against Garrett Cole. I mean, at least maybe 3 or 4 swings where he just looked like he was trying to send one to the third deck and right field. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's a little bit of personal. Last night it was with Garrett Cole, but he just has to keep his head on just steady. I mean, just base hits is really the name of the game, just to drive in some runs. And I mean, we'll definitely get into it a little later, but Bo Naylor, I don't know. I'm over Bo Naylor, so I don't think there's much helping him.
Well, it's early in his career, but Josh right now with that helmet flying off, it's almost like go back to Little League when you had the elastic strap underneath your helmet, your batting helmet to keep it on. The poor guy almost needs that. I mean, it seems like it's ready to fly off his head every time he swings. And he has a violent swing. It's just unfortunate right now the contact's not there. And hopefully it comes around because we definitely need it. We need it from the middle of the order based on the way the Yankees were hitting, getting home runs from Soto in game one, and then also Judge and Stanton, I think, was game one as well. So some of their guys in the middle of the order are going deep, playing in that Little League Williamsport type outfield in Yankee Stadium because it's so short. It's kind of crazy to go from the Detroit Stadium at Comerica with that massive outfield to now Yankee Stadium and trying to keep them in the park, which the Bronx crowd can be a little bit overwhelming in some aspects. Passionate fans there, they're not going to give you a break for nothing. But we definitely need to hit better on the road. But right now, if we want to get back on the road to game 6 and 7, we got to focus and get at minimum 2 out of 3 here in Cleveland. But just to sum up, looking at this box score of game 1, the one young man that I see at the bottom of the screen, and you mentioned about Bo Naylor and his struggles. How about Brian Rocchio? His offense has really came around, and I want to tie this in. I want to see if you remember this, Taven. He had an at-bat, I think it was in game 3 at Detroit, where I watched him, and I can't remember if he popped up, but he had a real nice swing, but it was still like he just missed it. And I watched him get fired up after that at-bat, like, damn it, the work that he's putting in, and he's trying to get there, like he knows he's so close. And then finally, after that game, we've seen him hit consistently. And has been playing well in the playoffs with his glove and at the bat. So for a guy that had, like even myself, comparing his stats early in the year into the middle to Ahmed Rosario's stats that we had last year, because we weren't getting the production out of the shortstop 9-hole and or getting the offensive production out of center field with the Tyler Freeman experiment that lasted for a good while of the year, but thankfully Lane Thomas trade has helped bring that together and get more production from the center field spots I know Thomas hits higher in the order, but Rocchio is doing a good job getting production out of that 9-hole, allowing Stephen Kwan to have somebody on base with his hot bat. So long story short, let me sum that up. I know I was rambling. Brian Rocchio, what do you think?
I love it. That's the guy. I mean, he's rated, I think, at one point the third best prospect in our system, and rightfully so. I mean, that's what you want out of him. I mean, you have essentially another leadoff guy with him in the 9-hole. I know me and Nate were talking on our show a little bit earlier. You might be able to see him in the 2-hole. If Vogt wants to switch a lot of things up, maybe have Quan hit leadoff, Rocchio gets on, and then you have 2 guys on, nobody out. So I don't think that's a bad idea either. To have him in the 2-hole, but he's been doing great as that second, type of leadoff guy.
Right. And then the last thing, looking at the box score from game 1, look at this pitching list. How many guys were either not on the team or in AAA this year? Didn't this feel like to you, this was a game where, Alex Cobb almost got his 3 innings. And now we know and find out that he's been removed from the playoff roster. Add in Ben Lively, which I think is a plus. I'm wondering if they thought that they were going to do this in the first place just because of the exhaustion that we put on the bullpen towards the end of they pitched in every game, did they not? Our top 4?
I want to say, I think Gaddis might have not pitched like an inning in there somewhere, but
yeah. But it just felt like we could not, with only the 1 day off before game 1, we could not dive back into that. So I think it was like we just needed. It almost felt, and it shouldn't have been this way. It almost felt like a Wednesday day game getaway, where you're just. Get whoever out there, almost a bullpen day, except it's not your top bullpen guys, hoping that we could somehow, some way, magically put a bunch of offense up and then maybe support these guys, give them enough lead. But unfortunately, that was not the case. So moving on to game two, what you said is, our ace on the mound, Tanner Bybee, couldn't even get 2 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, walk, 2 Ks. Unfortunate, because Tanner he has been our bulldog. He's been that guy to come in after a loss and bail this team out. We all know that he can pitch farther than that. If there's anybody that's going to be able to potentially pitch 7 innings that's in our starting rotation, it's Tanner Bybee. Were you surprised by his start? And what do you think going forward for him in the series, how he's going to produce?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I was as shocked as anybody when he was kind of getting beat up a little bit, and Vogt took him out quick, which I mean it seemed like the smart move. I mean, he brought in Cade Smith, he limited the damage, so it worked out for you in a good role. The thing with Bybee is he only threw 38 pitches, so you might see him in a game 4 potentially, just because he didn't throw many pitches. So you might have him back sooner than you would think. So there might be some upside to it. Obviously, he still lost the game, but Cade Smith goes in and does Cade Smith things. So it kind of goes back to and ties into that. I mean, the bullpen just kind of carries the slack for the starters when they have a bad outing. So.
Yeah, it just feels like now that through one series and now 2 games into the ALCS, I don't know that we're going to have any start that resembles a normal post-game or postseason start, where you have a starter that could, like I said, I'm hoping Tanner can get us a 7-inning game. That's almost like a night off for the bullpen. And I think that's absolutely vital, because we went from a 5-game series of making it work, using the bullpen as much as we did, but in a 7-game series without home field advantage, I think it's that much more difficult to try to repeat what we did, especially against a better offensive team.
And you're not going to be able to lean on the same Gaddis, Heron, Cade Smith, and Clase rotation with it being a 7-game series. Those guys are going to need rest, and that means you're going to have to roll the dice on, the Sabrowskis, Eli Morgans, and Pedro Avila, who's been doing great. But I mean, those guys they're up and down, especially like an Eli Morgan. So if you throw him in there, especially against a Yankee team that's loaded with MVPs and All-Stars, I don't know how it's really gonna go. So.
Yeah, so the down 0-2, got to take 4 out of the next 5. 3 of them are in Cleveland. If anything, this series, if we're going to make a comeback, it might have to resemble something like 2016. The Cavs come back down 3-1. I just don't know where the series goes. Like I said, I'm hoping the weather's super solid for the next 2 games, at the very least. These bats can get warm. The starting pitchers can get extended a little bit, give that relief to the bullpen, and I think that's vital to us winning this series, getting back in the series. Because if we go down 3-0, it's lights out, right? Which I think, regardless of what our Guardians team does this week and next week, we can be proud of this team. I know there's so many young guys that's got some great experience this year, but I'm not packing it in. This is guards ball. We just need to see it back in Progressive. One point I want to make that I made a comment on Twitter last night was this, and I know it's X, but I'm going to call it Twitter, is the Guardians need to play, instead of playing the jersey, instead of playing the Yankees, instead of playing the history, they need to just play guards ball. They need to just play baseball. They need to keep their focal point there. And I know you got big bats in that lineup that can concern you, but I really think that don't get nervous about that competition. I know it's easier said than done. I'm sitting here in my man cave, and they're up at the plate in front of all those Yankee fans in the Bronx that have all that history of championships in that city and in that stadium. What do you think? Do you really think that we're focusing on who we're playing, or are we focusing on actual guards ball?
No, it's a little bit of both. I think you see flashes in there. It might be a little bit of you kind of like, oh, it's the Yankees, but then again, it's not just a mindset. Like they're they're a more talented team. That's just the facts. They spend $5 billion a year. Like, kind of made the point. We got to draft our players. So obviously they have more talent, but they're not unbeatable. Like they're you can definitely push this to a 6 or 7 game series, and you might even have a chance to win it if you get really hot and can shut them out. So I think you just got to stick to who you are and who you've been playing as all season, and just get the bats rolling, and pitching just got to stay consistent. So
Yeah, I'm hoping that focus is there, back to what got them to the 92 wins, the division title. People are saying the Yankees have an easy road to the World Series, playing two AL Central teams. Let's not make it easy on them. Let's push them, and hopefully somehow, some way, we can get back in this series and take 4 games out of the next 5 and get to the World Series, because we're undefeated in the ALCS in my lifetime. 95, 97, 2016. Hopefully we can push this through, because I know there's a lot of Yankee fans that are going to show up at Progressive Field, and man, I don't want to see them there at Game 4 because they won Game 3. That's for sure, because they'll buy up more tickets so they can hope to have their team go to the World Series that night. We don't want that. It's just like having damn Steeler fans at Brown Stadium. So we definitely don't want that. So Guards fans, if you're out there and you're watching and listening, please show up. Be ready for Game 3. Be loud as you've been. It's been fantastic watch on TV. So let's go Guards.